Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Buckle up. You're in for a treat today. Before I introduce you to our guest and our theme, here's a quote just for this podcast. The most enduring traditions are those which have been forgotten. Friedrich Nietzsche. Our guest today is a former architect and business management um, executor of a family business turned business advisor, business consigliere, family advisor, consigliere globally. They are and have been a student for decades of family business advisory, a professor for well over, and teacher and mentor for well over 2 decades in the family business advisory global family network role, helping family businesses and businesses worldwide transition their legacies, traditions, stories, and so much more. They're the founder of an amazing company, Exaudi uh, Consulting Advisory, which I'm excited to learn and get into. The author of multiple books, but the Road to Triumph. Yes, The Road to Triumph, recently ordered. Can't wait to get inside of that. I had the opportunity to meet our guest, Guillermo Salazar, on a family firm institute. They've been associated well over 15 years and are a leader clearly in that community. They were doing a training on uh, um, well, we're going to talk about maybe genealogy or some type of. I guess that's why I have the guest on today to break down what we were learning. But it was profound and amazing, and I can't wait to get into and learn from you, Guillermo. Thank you for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. And if you're listening to this episode, and you haven't listened to our mutual connection, Gene Meeks Coke, on episode 985. Go there after this episode. It's going to be a breath of insight and information. So, Guillermo, thank you for coming on the Culture Matters podcast and for the work that you do. It's pretty amazing. And in the spirit of Exaudi, let me listen.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for information, for the invitation. I'm sorry. For the amazing information you're sharing about me. That's a good compilation.
Well, I was so inspired by your presentation. So let's start there as it relates to when you were teaching many advisors globally on a topic that I was so caught up in the preparation, I forgot the words. Um, what were we learning that day, and why is that relevant to our audience at whatever level that they are on in their entrepreneurial career? We have many founders of generational businesses that listen, those that aspire to this level of success, those that work for these organizations that listen to the Culture Matters podcast. So, what were we learning that day, and why is that so relevant to business individuals and family business individuals that listen to our show?
Well, I think that you have said the word kind of 9 or 10 times, the key word for this, which is listening. Listen is the word that help us to connect with the others. And as you mentioned, my consulting company, Exaudi, uh, is named after listen in Latin. Exaudi means listen. And this is an order. You'll have to listen. So, uh, whenever you are dealing with human beings, the main reason to relate with the others is having the opportunity to exchange feelings and knowledge. So the only way is that you think about the two ways of the relationships. And usually what is really challenging is not to let the others to know what we think, is to let you to let what the other thinks.
Hmm.
There's exactly the moment when you say, okay, we what we need to focus on our efforts for learning is in the opposite part. We need to start to listen and learn to listen, and that's a key word in all of this.
What are some consequences or unintentional outcomes that can occur in business as you've seen it, and family governance when listening stops?
Mhm. Well, obviously, I think that the origin of all of the conflicts, it's the lack of communication. And because I always think that if we are talking about family businesses, we are talking about a family value that led people to grow together. When you come from a family, you are supposed to be sharing values that will shape your style, your approach, and your the way to understand the relationships. And usually, when you grow from a family, love is the main value that helps you to deal with the relationships, with especially with the members of your family. So if we start with that and we add the business element, we will see that most of the problems of communications start when you assume that there is a lack of good intentions in the conflict. But if we go back to the origins of the relationship, which is a family relationship based on love, we can say that we are a family related with good intentions. So every time that we have a problem, if we go back in our trying to find the origin of the conflict, usually what we are going to find out is that there was a misunderstanding of information. If I have a conflict with my brother, if I have a conflict with my sister, but we grow together under the same roof with the same values, probably if we sat down and we start to talk and we start to go back to the origin of the conflict, we will find, and I can assure you that it happens in 90% of the cases, we will find out that there was a misunderstanding in the information. There was no a bad intention. There was no way that I wanted to hurt you because you're my brother, you're my sister. How can I do that? The only thing is that there was a problem of communication. And I can assure you that 90% of the cases can get resolved with that if we are talking about family.
Sure. So on that line of on that line with family and let's say breakdown communication for our audience, what relationship can or does that breakdown have with how the structures, the governance, and what and vision. And you talk about story. I was listening to your podcast, the power of story of the past history.
Mhm.
So the first question in that is the relationship of structure and governments and on that heaviness, or if you were to put it, that's how I'm kind of trying to articulate it, heaviness or breakdown in communication. What relationship does that have with the governance, the structure, how protocols and so on?
Yeah, well, based on what I said, what we need to do is to uh, set the room, set the space to have those conversations that we need eh, to get order in the decision-making processes. So when we start putting order in our system, a system that is made of a part of business, a part of family, and a part of ownership. What we need is to set the room for conversations on a specific agenda of issues related with what we need to talk. We need to talk about business. We need to talk about strategy. Okay, let's talk about strategy as a business person. If we need to talk about family and succession process and family conflicts, we need to go to the specific room and talk under the agenda of family conflict, family succession, how to deal with the next generation, etc. And if you need to talk about ownership and strategic of, for example, investment or whatever expansion of your assets, we need to go to the room of the shareholders. So that's another kind of conversation with a different agenda. So once you have clear what you need to talk about, you will be able to put in practice the good communication to get the right decisions in the right place. And that's the way that you create the governance structure. And obviously, there is a relationship among all of these three rooms because most of the cases, this is the same people that belongs to one room and the other. So what really makes the difference is understanding that if there is an agenda that we are going to follow in the more restricted way and try not to mix the different issues of the other rooms, we will have probably a good system with a good communication, with people with good intentions trying to do things in the right way.
For our listeners that are intrigued by this whole concept, maybe this is the first time they're even being introduced, why is it relevant and what role does family business have in the world in your point of view? As a global, your background in Venezuela, you live in Houston, you work globally, yeah? So what
Yeah,
role, what impact does family business have on the world and what exactly are we addressing here?
yeah, that's a good question because I mean, living in this part of the world practically makes you evident that we don't have to make that question. All of the business are somehow related with family businesses. Or the better way to put it, from all of the capitalism systems in the world where private ownership is the preeminent way of concept of businesses, most of them, and when I say most, I will say more than 80% in cases of private capital, it's related with the predominant family that makes the main decisions of that company. So that's the way that another way to put it. So you can say almost all of the business in the world are family business, except if you can show me that they are not.
It's so in a sense, it's there, it's more of a norm, and then show me the exception. So that's the base of where our
Exactly.
conversation is. This is impacting everyone, whether they realize it or not.
Exactly. And sometimes I think that especially with the small businesses, they don't know they are a family business until a divorce come. For example, when there is a circumstance where the ownership gets stressed, oh, they realize we are a family business. We need to talk about this. So yes, most of the cases, with exceptions, are family business in the world.
Now, the role of the advisor. Um, what's the history behind that, to your knowledge? Why is that important, or at what time of at what time? Because one of the podcasts I was listening to in preparation, you said 95% is actually reactive, 5% maybe proactive. That's how I took it. 95% you're coming into something. Oh, maybe we should have thought of this earlier. So, what's the history of the family business advisor, succession, continuity, legacy? What's the history of that, and what's the role of this? Uh,
Mhm.
uh,
Well, if you want to go back to the history where judicial institutions start to appear, you can say that the institutions that are not related with the government that really last are the church, for example, universities, for example. They are really, really old institutions. But when you go to look for private institutions related with the family, you will have so few cases, so few cases. And the thing is that it's more challenging the transmission to the next generation of the company than any other institution, government from government or not government. So what we find is that uh, successful succession processes that can last and you can track from today going back, um, you will see that these few enterprises probably they didn't need any advisor for that. Probably what they have is a trust, internal trust advisor. Probably they will have special circumstances, um, luck, I don't know. But the role of the advisor that advise family businesses, it really recently that you can find them in the market of services for family businesses. And we are talking about 40 years ago, for example, it was very hard to find someone who could have the knowledge or the experience to help families to thrive with the succession process. So it all started in early 80s from the,
Wow.
from the last century when the first uh, works start to be published based on some research in American universities. And this started to grow, and eventually there were some um, professionals that were related with business world that start to specialize in family businesses. So this is very recent. And what I have to say is that I'm not really sure if because of the presence of these advisors, we have more successful business, family business right now, or maybe the rate is the same. I'm not really sure. It's very hard to measure that because we don't have all the data from the beginning of the, for example, beginning of the 20th century, where the private businesses start to grow. So it's very interesting how a family business have the option. This is always an option. You can go by yourself, or you can hire an advisor that can help you go through the process. But I can assure you that it can make a difference. It can make a difference trying to understand another point of view, someone with experience, someone that can guide you on what decisions you need to do in most of the situations that are very common to family business in the same situation.
Hmm.
So it helps. It's new, but we still have a lot of things to learn together.
I recalled what the training was that I participated that you were giving, the genogram. What is that, and how have you seen that uh, impact family, the
Mhm.
process?
Well, the Enneagram is a tool. It's a tool for understanding the relationships in a family. If you are an advisor, for example, it's a tool for helping individuals and families to understand their structure, history, and relationship. If you're an advisor, you can use that tool to better understand whatever the client is not telling you, all the information that lays in the background that sometimes is key for you to help them to solve communication problem, to solve uh, um, different concepts that need to be addressed. Most of this information you can extract it from the genogram, and there is a technique for that. And the genogram can help you to also order your ideas on how to deal with the client because every family is different. Every family has its own issues, its own history. And the way that you can do that in an orderly way is helping and laying in a tool like the genogram.
History.
Mm.
What is family history? Uh, why is it relevant to our listeners? Everyone that's listening to this,
Yeah.
I mean, if they're alive, I would think that they have a history and their
Yes.
family has a history. So, what role does history play in this process of continuity, process of communication, um, alignment, in your view, and the legacy and let's envisioning and action,
Mhm.
history?
History is the essence of identity. As an individual, we are always looking for answer the question who I am, why I am here in this world, where I am going to. Those are the questions that always with the human being since the beginning of time. So when you create and you recreate your own history, you will find the pieces that match with the answers to that questions. So you can find your own identity when you find your history. If you share those pieces of history with others, that's a common history. And the family is the perfect place to have common history. You will find in that common history the values that determine your process, your decision-making process. Values are the keys that help you decide. So every time that you have to decide, you lay on your values to know which way you should go. So those values are in the history. There is an origin on why they belong to your family and why they belong to you. So every time that you create and you recreate the history and you share that history with your family, you reinforce your concept of identity, and that gives you security, because that's basically what humans being are trying to find in this question of who I am. I need to be sure who I am. In family business, when we recreate the history, we can lay on the genogram, because the genogram is the perfect tool for telling us stories. I come from this father, I come from this mother, they come from those other grandparents that I have. We are this kind of family. I belong here, and we are X family, for example. And all of the elements that you can use in the history to define yourself and define your family, you can also use them to define your family business. So a family business also have a history related with the founders, related with the people that work with them, with all the elements that they need to create and construct the identity of the family business. That's why it is so important.
You mentioned earlier in the show the uh, attention on love and something that can actually occur among family members where maybe the benefit of the doubt is not assumed, or meaning, you know, if what was it, if the family member has believes that their counterpart has a pure intention, if that breaks down, the communication can break down.
Yes.
That's what something I was thinking about when you said earlier. Okay, so um, coming together to discuss the history where the family comes from. How does that have an impact on those assumptions, on aligning those assumptions?
Yeah,
Like
sometimes.
meaning, let's say as a group, families coming together with yourself,
Mhm.
looking at the past, uncovering the values, is that having can that have an impact on the new assumptions that are occurring, right?
Yes.
I'm thinking in the absence of that, if you can expound, I think there's something very practical, I think, for audience in that maybe.
Yes,
Um,
that's something that usually is a consequence of doing that recreation of the history. In my methodology of working, I try to start with the story at the beginning of the process, so we can set the base of what we are talking about. We are talking about this frame in where there is a family, a business, a history, and those are the elements that are common for all of us. So when we recreate the history, usually family members rediscover things that they forgot, or they didn't know, or usually it was a misunderstanding of some part of the history, and you put that in common and you make it official again. You recreate the official history with them. This is not, I thought that, I don't know, my grandparents, they came from Germany. No, they came from Austria, for example. Oh, that's a curious curious information, but that reshapes my identity, and that is a part of my history that I didn't have that piece of information. And now it makes sense for me. Now that's why I understand when I see, I don't know, I listen to Mozart. I like it because this comes from my, from my heritage, things like that. And and that helps to create community and identity. So it it helps you to set the mood for a better communication because we are the same. We are brothers and sisters, we are family, we are looking for trying to preserve that values and information. Of course, there are exceptions. Of course, you can have a really heavy conflict. And probably most of the cases when the conflict has a very, very difficult way to solve, you will find members that will say, I'm that I, they don't belong to that story. They don't identify with that. That there are different cases, but most of the cases that help us to create the perfect mood to to lay down the barriers and help them to go in a more sincere way. Okay, this is me. I see myself. I see yourself. And let's talk about this. We are the same.
This is amazing. So if you can elucidate on, I want to make sure I'm following. So I have my own, and we can go into the hero's journey, your book, The Road to Triumph. I'm Each individual is on, in a sense, a hero's journey. In the organizational context, there's an organizational cycle or an organizational journey, rather, within cycles. And there's a historical narrative of, on a group sense, communal sense, a family.
Yes, it is.
Would in the absence of that integration of the group, the family, what you're saying, go back to the history. My speculation would be that would put potentially top-down pressure on each individual on their own hero's journey. So there's an identity of each individual, and the group identity would be like the family culture, uh, while there's simultaneously an organizational culture. So it's like there's, but I'm just trying to conceptualize where we're at so far. So each individual has their own identity. Then on a there's a the family's identity is rooted in the history, which reveals the values, and the process of coming together, looking at the past to get clear on the values, starts to create continuity.
Yes. And as you mentioned, that can put you a lot of pressure if you are trying to be part of this history. I mean, if I come from a family that is plenty of success and a lot of history that recreates the grandiosity of the founder and millions of dollars, and how can I fit in this if I am part
Oh.
of the next generation?
What are some of the feelings, the perspectives, the narratives that, yes, generations coming later in that lineage are confronted with, that maybe the general population would never conceptualize? Example, I was actually on a podcast yesterday where a G1 was saying how, they can't even imagine, or they ultimately were elucidating on, and they weren't being intentionally being malevolent or something. They were like, you know, all the reasons why the G2 should be successful.
Yes, exactly.
And my retort to them was, how about a tree with a really big, the big tree with a lot of branches and leaves, and that little acorn is in the shade. It can't see the sun. So there's consequences, there's symptoms to that. So what in your from anecdotal, you've been doing this for decades now, all over the world, working with families. What are some of the narratives, the albatrosses, the adversities that those that work within family businesses, that come up in family businesses, that may be listening, are confronted with, that whether they realize it or not, the
Mhm.
real realities? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is another tool that you can use for recreating a narrative, especially in family business. That works very well when you are working from first to second and second to third generation, probably third to fourth. It can also work. It depends on the way that you do it, which is the one that you mentioned before, the hero's journey. The hero's journey, it's a template for telling stories in a very, very short way to say it. It comes from the research that Joseph Campbell made in late 40s, last century, recreating and researching on cultures from all around the world about how to tell stories, how human communities from Japan to North American natives to South America to Europe, Africa, Asia, all of those cultures have the same way to tell the same story. Are different just in the surface, but in essence, they are the same. It's the story of a hero that has a journey from the beginning to the end. So that's the way that in our DNA, in our unconscious, we understand the stories. So every time that you watch a movie, every time that you read a book, every time that you listen to a story about someone, it's basically the same structure of this template. And when you apply that to a family business, it can really make a difference between just telling the story or telling the story with purpose. And the purpose you can design when telling the story can have one impact in the previous generation, in the current generation, another impact in the next generation, or you can have both. You can affect the way that the first and the second, the third, the fourth generation, they understand the same story. And there is a message for each one of them. So when you recreate the hero's journey with the elements of a family business, you will probably talk about the founder. And most of the elements that you will tell, what you will share with the story of the family, are about the founder, the hero, the immortal, the perfect person, the successful businessman or woman. This person is amazing, is incredible. How can I, a member of the next generation, be like him? It's impossible. Are you asking me to be like him or like her and keep on running this family business? It's impossible. I cannot do that. So the secret is that the hero's journey helps you to understand the human side of the hero. When you start to listening that the hero at the beginning, he has fears. He was always dubbing. He wasn't sure he was doing. He wasn't sure that the way that he was starting a business was the right one. He made mistakes. He felt alone. He felt he was dying. And suddenly he started to think that maybe that could work. And suddenly he started to see that his business start to do something different. And then he becomes a hero. But after an important part of the history that is he made mistakes. And when the next generation start to listen the story, say, okay, so my grandfather wasn't that perfect. My grandfather was not that myth I thought he was. So probably I can do something like this. Probably I can make mistakes. Probably I can get help from someone. And probably I can get some responsibilities in this family business. I don't need to be a hero. I just need to keep on going the business from my own point of view. I can add value. I can bring some innovations. I don't know, but that's my way. I don't have to be perfect like him because he was not perfect. So that's the way that you can apply that template to tell the story. And that really closes the approach from the myth to the human. And that's the way to understand a hero when this mythical figure starts to become more human.
You just inspired a thought. If I'm G2, I'm on someone else's hero's journey. That's innately going to create a tension. So is there a paradox of like, let's say if we had a quadrant and just like a quadrant, right? If does so in one context, the G2 could have a low desire to take over and a high, and the G1 could have a high desire to let go. That's going to create a tension in the sense that a failure, like, okay, it's going to not work out. And another frame would be like a low G1 is a low likelihood of letting go, and then there's a low desire to take over. Okay, that's that's going to result in a different frame. And then in another context, it's a low likelihood of letting go, but a high desire to take over, like low let go G1, high desire to take over G2. That would lead to like a lot of tension, maybe like resentment, repression, triangulation. And then in another context, there's you know, a won't let go, high desire. Yeah, will let go. G1 will let go, high desire to take over. Now that's like the unicorn.
Yeah,
But I
that's
guess so I'm just this is just a fleeting thing, but like you the you're there's different so I don't know. I just wanted your thoughts on that. Well, high let go, high G1, high let but high concept to let go, high desire to take over. That's like that's where people like you come in to help facilitate that process because it's an abnormal process. It's a vision. But the reason I'm bringing this up, I want your expertise on this is because the hero's journey that you're elucidating on that everyone should take a look at. The G1 is on that hero's journey from an organizational and a governance standpoint and their core values. The G2 has their own identity, their own hero's journey within that frame. And so that creates a tension implicitly in like, yes, of course, everyone's on their own. However, so I wanted your expertise on this as the culture architect.
No, that's a very good drawing that you did. Can you show it to me? It's very interesting the way that you put it in the
Yeah,
four
like a
frames.
quadrant.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, let go on the top, desire on the bottom. Let go be G1, desire be G2.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in one, it would be low likelihood of letting go from G1, low desire G2 is one thing. And then in another, it's won't let go from G1, and the G2 won't, there's no desire, right? There's no impulse. And another, it's the G1 would let go, and the G2 I'm sorry, they won't let go, or the let go is high and the desire is low. And then in
Hmm.
one, it would be they would let go and there is the high desire.
Yeah,
I got to think through this a little bit more and try to
this
edit
is
it. But
that's
like
very, very good.
there's going to be a tension, like, and then, yeah. So where does history, the family history, the vision of the family, then the clarifying the core values and the rituals come in to for this transition generation one to generation two. And why does it matter even to our audiences of entrepreneurs? What, in this worldwide culture today where we're one M&A phone call away from Mai Tais and beaches. And I mean that that was a little tongue in cheek, but like there are families. I was reading a book. It was borrowed from our grandchildren about these case studies of
Hmm.
families with like 1,000-year histories and so on. Um, you know, maybe that's not for everybody, but why is it for them kind of thing? Like what,
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful part of the life when you start to realize that we are we have a limited time here in this world, and what most of the founders and G1 leaders really want on the bottom of their heart is leaving a legacy. A legacy means that you are delivering to the next generation the values, the principles, the tools that they will need for their life. And if I can be modest, well, I would like you to take me for inspiration for that because I did it. I could make it. And I think that from my love, you will do the same because I know you and you are made from the same substance I am made of. So that's what my legacy is.
Mm,
Mm. This hero journey helps you if you are a G1 founder, will help you to guide through the succession process. The way that the hero's journey is designed, it's works. It's that the hero starts in the what we call the ordinary world. Is the world where the ordinary people lives. You are not special at all. But suddenly one day you decide to cross a threshold, a portal that leads you to a magical world. The magical world is where everything happens. When you create your business, everything starts to grow, everything goes wonderfully. And this wonderful world is where people recognize you because you start to get a mesh with the figure of the hero. The hero lives in the magical world, but you need to go back to the ordinary world by the end of the journey. Why do you need to go back? Because no one lives in the magical world forever. You need to go back to the ordinary world and you need to teach the others what you have learned, what you have discovered in that magical world. Once you go through the portal from the magical world to the ordinary world back, you have a mission. It's telling the others how to do the things that you did. And that's the legacy. And that's when you start to think, okay, maybe I need to retire. Maybe I need to, leave space for someone else to do the same because the ordinary world, the magical world still exists. There is a business
mm.
back there, but my time, I need to do something different now because I am a hero. I need to go back and show them this is my legacy. I bring you justice. I bring you rich wellness, whatever you want from me, because I am a hero. So once you have that in mind and you belong to a G1, you understand that you have a mission to complement. And that really helps you when you need to close your cycles and help them to create a succession process.
Have you seen, do you think, what relationship does when we say G1 to all the listeners, we mean generation one, founder, patriarch or matriarch, or, in that position, uh, what relationship in their own, with meaning, like, is their own life's meaning? Have you seen in people that go through this process, their own life's meaning or peace, life's peace?
Yes, yes. That by the end of the day, the idea is that you find yourself in these processes and you find your place, your right place. Um, Usually, when you understand this and what lays ahead on your journey, you see where you're missing. Maybe you have time um, to prepare your next step on this journey. Um, but usually, what you are going to demand is, okay, I need to leave my legacy. I need to order whatever I have learned to transmit to the next generation. So I don't know, maybe I can write a book, I can make a video. I don't know. I need to do something to make this transition possible of these experiences. And I also need a recognition. I need you to recognize my figure. So how do you recognize a hero? Well, there are many ways. Usually you can leave them a special chair in the board, for example, as a uh, eternal president or something. You name the title you want to give. This is a perfect way to recognize a hero. He is not the CEO anymore. He is our president, our emerital president, our special person. He's the founder. No one is like him. No one will ever be like him. So that's a way to recognize. That really helps a lot. You can make a statue. I don't know. You can do a lot of things
Yeah, yeah.
for recognizing, but that's very important because otherwise, I will not leave the magical world. If I don't have my legacy and my recognition in the right time, I will keep my presence in the magical world. And that's the
Mm.
worst decision you can make. Because when you have a founder that doesn't return to the ordinary world, you will have a, a tyranny, someone that is living in a world that doesn't belong. So that's the kind of situation that we want to avoid. So
Oh
we
my, we have to have you back to unpack that. I just got some, there's some transcendent stories there we could elucidate on. It's like the fallen angel didn't go to the next world. They stayed here. Uh they stayed, I'm elucidating on like Satan and God narrative in the West, but that's very powerful. I have a quote that came to mind. It was it's not those who can't teach, it's those who have done must share. So there's a transition you're sharing here. If the founder or the ultimate authority goes through this process of hero's journey with yourself and others who have dedicated their life to this work, that opens up the possibility. It's like a door is opening for the next generation to embody that time and space that they embodied, what they valued, what they did, what they chose not to do. It's opening up that door for them to step in to that role. If they don't go on that hero's journey and complete it, the door is closed and everybody's waiting outside. They can't get in the party. And then it's like it's a suffocation kind of thing. That's how
okay.
I'm interpreting that. So that to be proactive in the process, you take those at the ultimate authority on that hero's journey to open up a capacity for members below in that invisible hierarchy, um, or genetic or historical social hierarchy to move up. It's there's not a
Yeah.
bottleneck. There's not a
Yes.
bottleneck.
Yes.
You can expand on that.
Yeah, that you already did. I mean, that explains that these quadrants that you draw, that explain how you travel from not willing the G1 and the next and the G2, not willing to do anything to the unicorn quadrant, because we can solve how the G1 wants to live and how the G2 wants to go in, because you can have answers for all of those questions.
Well, and here's something I would ask you is I know we have short time, but like we don't actually know how could we know what those below G1 want in the absence of that process because what they want has a relationship with the feedback loops of everything. Those
Mhm.
around them, those above them, the government, what we all want. It was Schopenhauer. I like him. He said, I can do what I want. I can't want what I want, or something to that effect. We can all do what we want. We can't want what we want. Um, that's why I opened with that quote. I was thinking a lot about this show and how where we could go. You're so insightful and knowledgeable on that lecture. I figured maybe we could explore a little bit together. This clearly your passion, but uh, uh, I have a question about architecture real quick because you studied architecture. You were in business construction before you started working with families throughout the world in this regard. What value, if at all, did the background in studying architecture? That's if I understand that correctly. I haven't studied that. That's what like buildings and things have on building family systems, working with in family businesses? Anything that in hindsight you'd say was the and the reason I asked that is Charlie Munger, the architect of Berkshire Hathaway, he was an architect too, and I think it was a big part of why Warren stepped down before we kicked him out of the Berkshire, we as in the shareholders. So yeah, did architecture and the study of it, things you picked up along the way, make you even more, help you with this work in your career with families, being the architect?
I would say yes, absolutely, absolutely. When you are an architect, you understand the three concepts of this profession, which is order, space, and form. And the three concepts are the ones that I use with my clients. Orders, it's based on structure of governance. Once you create the order of the decision maker process through the governance body, the councils, the boards, whatever helps you to put order in the system, that's the way that we create order in when you start designing and constructing a building from the structure, from the beginning on the lower levels to the upper levels. That's the way to create order. Space. Space is where you help to shape the air. We architects, we work with air. Whatever we do, we try to create the conditions for humans be to inhabitate those spaces of air. So once you create the conditions for living together, stay together in a room, having the appropriate light, air, and whatever we have said before about creating communication, that's the way to create the space. Where can we meet together? We can we talk together? Where can we recreate our story? Everything that we need to live as a family. That's the space. And the form is the identity. The way that you create forms is the way that family business recreate their own identity, their brand, their shape of they have built. That's the form that you help them to create. So yes, architecture is absolutely what I do with my clients.
Guillermo, you're welcome back anytime. I can't wait to read your book, The Road to Triumph, right, on Amazon. I just got it today. It'll be here tomorrow. So you're welcome back anytime. If anyone is listening to this, I challenge you to listen to this maybe 3 or 4 times if this is a new topic for you. Share this with a friend that you know or someone that you care about that could use and benefit from proactive planning in their entrepreneurial and business and governance to develop legacy. Please go listen to episode 985. Our mutual friend of the Family Firm Institute, Gene Meeks Koch, is amazing. Has been on the show. And thank you, Guillermo, because this is our 999th episode, and I'm sharing this with you. I'm so excited because 1000 is coming around the corner. So thank you for being, and I'm the guest on that. So so
Wow.
thank you for being, in a sense, the final guest on this chapter of my story and our listeners' um, story with the show. So thanks so much. This has been very enlightening.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for more. I really enjoyed the conversation with you. And
Where can
very
people connect with you? Fastest way. Yeah.
the fastest way is going to my webpage, guillermosalazar.com. But the best way is through LinkedIn. You can find everything I'm doing. It's my social media. You can find me there and contact me. More than glad to contact you guys, whatever you need to know.
And our listeners, they can, if they're in the family advisory world, they can go and see you in at the events at the Family Firm Institute.
Absolutely. I'll be on the next uh, October. Next October, I'll be in Boston at the FFI Annual Congress.
Please, if you're listening to this, leave us a review in the Culture Matters podcast. Share this with someone that you know would get value from it. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thank you, my friend.